Carol wasn't ever exactly the most stable person at the best of times, but I never thought it would go as far as it did. How could I? How could anyone? Yet, there I was, going to my neighbors' houses one by one, begging them not to bring it up. The barbecue was only a few hours away, and a lot of people had RSVP'd, a fact which would have made me ecstatic just 6 weeks ago, but after everything that happened, it only served to fill me with dread. Now, I don't even know if I'll ever be happy again. It all started when our newborn, Andrew, came home with us from the hospital. He was the best, Carol's bright blue eyes and my big fucking ears. He was the best. Andrew died in his crib within a month. Sudden infant death syndrome, they called it. It certainly was sudden, all right. A meteor impact would have been less out of the blue. Carol didn't speak for weeks. She couldn't even attend the funeral. Then, one day, I came home from work to find her curled up in the rocking chair in the baby's room, nursing something. Well, trying to, anyway. Swaddled in a baby blue blanket, wrapped up in her arms, was our dog, Max. Only Max wasn't quite Max anymore. Carol had shaved him, completely. There was barely a single hair left on his little Chihuahua dog body. She shushed me when I screamed, telling me that she was only teaching Andrew not to bark, and that she was so happy to have him back with us. It made me sick, but at the same time, she really did seem like herself again. Fucked up as it was. Like he'd never actually died. As it turned out, that's exactly what Carol believed. Apparently, God had swapped the souls, and Max the Chihuahua had perished in the body of our son and Andrew had inhabited the canine vessel he now found himself in. Our son. I knew that Carol was sick, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up the phone and have her sent away so that some doctor could dope her up and lock her in a white room someplace and throw away the key. She was all I had left, and so began our new life. It was fine when she never left the house. I think on some level deep down she knew that it wasn't really our baby, what people would say if they saw him. Unfortunately, though, after a while, I couldn't keep her inside anymore. I came home to a great big hug, the kind that'd probably kill someone if they were frail enough, and the news that she'd already sent out the invitations. Puzzled, I asked her what she meant, and Carol told me that they were for the backyard barbecue we'd been planning for that evening. That was the first I'd heard of it. An hour later I was frantically running around buying hot dogs and burgers and buns and the barbecue setup we didn't own. Then, I had 14 of the most awkwardly deceitful conversations of my entire life. Most of the neighbors were understanding enough of whatever lies I told them regarding my wife's crumbling mental state, and to the ones I knew wouldn't be I made up excuses as to why the barbecue was off, which worked without a hitch due to the extreme short notice of the whole thing. All of them closed the door with a similar, sad expression on their faces. All of them, so happy at the idea of seeing us around the neighborhood again. I don't know what I was expecting. I just wanted to keep her close to me. just for a little while longer. When I came home, sweating through my shirt from the stress of it all, Carol came downstairs as she heard me come in. She was wearing the dress from our first date, still as beautiful as ever. I asked her where Andrew was, and to my utter relief she told me nonchalantly that he was apparently sound asleep. Feeling like I could finally relax, I took a moment in the bathroom to thank the Lord and splash some much-needed water over my face. Then the guests started showing up. The Smiths, Joyce, and Steve, knocked on the door at exactly 7 p.m. owing to Joyce's neurotic need to always be precisely punctual to any given social event or occasion. I used this to my advantage and sent the couple into the kitchen to babysit Carol, who was sitting rigidly in one of the lawn chairs out back, gazing intently at a crow perched on a power line as if it were revealing the secrets of the universe to her. Carol seemed to liven up as more people arrived, and for a short while it was almost as if she truly was her old self again. Just like I had hoped. Everyone was laughing and joking around, and the neighborhood kids were having a great time playing out in the street. I even started to enjoy myself, chatting shit about football games I'd missed with Steve and cooking up burgers. Then, as if by some sick cosmic joke, the front door was all of a sudden being hammered ceaselessly. And then the barking. Then the confusion on everybody's faces when Carol sprang to her feet, saying how she was going up to get Andrew. I gave chase as she climbed the stairs, begging her not to bring him outside, but she was beyond reason at that point. Throwing the front door open, enraged and mortified, I was furious to see that it was the asshole from next door, Dale. He was pissed off about how I'd lied to him about the barbecue being off, and, unable to think of anything else to say, I allowed him to shove past me with barely a word of resistance. An hour passed. Then two. The party was clearing out, and it seemed as if maybe Carol had listened to me, after all. While I was in the middle of subtly trying to coax an already shit-faced Dale into going home, I heard her at the top of the stairs, humming a sweet lullaby. Grabbing Dale's arm and leading him outside, we were almost home free when my wife called after him as if nothing were at all amiss, asking if he'd like to hold the baby. Dale's face went white as he saw the bald snout poking out from within the pale blue bundle of blanket in her arms. About to speak but unable to, he staggered outside, where I could hear him vomiting in our bushes. Before I knew what was happening, Carol had wandered by me and into the backyard, among the remaining guests. The immediate shock was audible before I could even close the distance to join them, and several of the guests hastily pushed past me to leave on my way outside. Steve and Joyce were frozen in place, shadowed by Michael and Ginny and their daughter Stephanie from across the street. All five were very clearly looking for a way out, any way out, as uncomfortable as I'd ever seen anyone, and I couldn't blame them. As I was whispering to Carol in between her swoons of "Isn't he beautiful?" in a vain effort to lead her back inside, I heard sudden drunk footsteps drag in behind us. "That's not a baby, it's a shaved dog." With one last gasp, the remaining guests took that devastating outburst as their chance to escape. Which they did, quickly, thankfully pulling Dale along with them as they went. Joining Carol once again in the backyard after I locked the front door, I pulled her close to me and we embraced, cradling a swaddled Max between us. "I'm so sorry, honey." Upvote 5. Downvote 3. Comments. Share.